Hey everybody, I am back, armed with a fresh knowledge of banjos and how to set them up, and I am ready to do a little bit more talking about this banjo and maybe play a little bit. So some things that I learned about in my internet research all about banjos. This is called the head of the banjo, which it actually says right here. It's a graphite banjo head. So, whoops. Also, this is the resonator, this part on the back, which makes some cool sounds. I've got mine a little bit loose. You can keep it kind of tight also if you would like. But I find that in the past 30 minutes that I've been doing this, I've found that the looseness of the head kind of helps with the vibrations, so it sounds a little bit more punchy. I have been enjoying that sound, so I'm going to leave it loose for now. So I got it all tuned up. Check again if it's all tuned up, because as you know, with new strings, it can be kind of difficult to keep it in tune. Also, as a guitar player, I'm having some difficulty transitioning from playing the guitar where the body is a bit heavier and you do a lot of supporting down here and are free to kind of move your hand around. The neck is definitely heavier on this particular banjo. I'm not sure if all are like that. So I'm having some trouble. I've been trying to support the neck with my hand, which is obviously not ideal for playing. So I feel like I'm going to have to find a position that's a little bit more comfortable for me, where I'm able to kind of hold it while also still playing. It's going to take some experimentation, but I think I'll figure something out eventually. So I'm going to finish my tuning because it has gone a little bit out of tune again. There it is, that blocked E string when you're trying to support without the body. So I learned some interesting things. One is the position of your bridge is a real big deal, which from a guitar, if you've ever done like any guitar construction or setup, you can move the bridge back and forth a little bit to kind of help your intonation. Here, obviously, the bridge is just free floating wherever you want to put it, but obviously there's a sweet spot for that intonation. So mine is kind of off right now. If you listen, I play the open E and then E at the 12th fret. It's a little bit sharp. It's not terrible, and I can live with it for now until I'm ready to detune all the strings again and move that bridge a smidge. But it's definitely noticeable, and I'm sure eventually I'm going to want to correct it because it will drive me kind of nuts. So another thing that I learned, if you are stretching out your strings when you're trying to bring new ones up to tune, which is something that I do all the time when I'm restringing a guitar, is I kind of stretch the strings up and down, to kind of to get them a little more stretched and speed up that breaking in process of the strings. That's not ideal to do with a bridge like this. I tried to stretch my E string and it popped up another 2 little notches and landed where my D string is supposed to sit, or G. So that was not ideal. I had to kind of start over after that. So don't do a lot of string stretching up or down. Because you don't want the strings popping out of the bridge. That's super not ideal, obviously. Some other stuff I learned. So this being a 6-string banjo, and I'm not sure of the typical scale length of banjos, the scale length being the distance from the bridge to the nut down here. I don't know what the typical one is. This one, I think being more designed for guitar players trying to expand their horizons, is 25.5, which is a pretty standard guitar scale length. Nonetheless, I have found it fairly difficult to adjust to. I don't know necessarily that it's the difference in the scale length so much as this is a much thicker neck than I'm used to. Obviously I'm a girl, I got small hands, so I tend to gravitate towards the Ibanez and ones with real thin, kind of made for wizard fast metal playing necks. Not that I have ever been wizard fast at my metal licks, but I like the thin necks because it's just easier to get my hands around them. But this one, having kind of the thicker neck, I feel a little clumsy on it right now. Kind of difficult to adjust to, but I'm sure I'll get the hang of it. Another thing I wanted to note as I was tuning this up, my D tuner right here was, it's kind of sticky. So I'm not sure if that's like an oil issue. I'm going to have to look into that because it's bugging me a little bit, but I'm sure it's fixable. But yeah, I just wanted to note that because otherwise I feel like this is a really quality instrument and has some pretty good quality control going on. The frets, as I feel up and down the neck here, there's no exposed fret edges, nothing is sharp or poking me, which I think is a sign of really good construction or really good quality control, because a lot of times as they are shipped or as they sit in the warehouse waiting to be taken somewhere, the wood will expand and shrink, as wood does, exposing those frets if there hasn't been a lot of finishing done on them. But this one feels really nice, so I'm really happy with that. So I'm gonna do a little bit of playing. Like I said, I'm not great, and even not as great on banjo, but I'll play around a little bit of chordy things. And I heard somewhere that it's best to play the top 4 strings of a 6-string banjo if you're just going to be doing chords, because of the resonator head, or just the head, sorry, I'm going to get my terminology correct, I swear. But because of the head and the way that it does resonate, the notes don't really dampen like they do on a guitar when you let go of the strings. It's kind of like holding down the sustain pedal on the piano all the time, because those notes are still going to be ringing in the head and the resonator, even though they're no longer ringing on the strings. So it can get really muddy really fast if you're doing a lot of fast chord changes, or if you're even like all the notes in the chord can get to be a lot. So I'm going to try out that advice and just use a few strings and we'll see what happens. Okay, here we go. So you kind of get an idea of what it sounds like. It's really loud. Like I'd say maybe even a little bit louder than a standard acoustic guitar. And probably a lot of that is the resonator. But I'm a little surprised. I expected with this kind of smaller body that it would be a little bit quieter, but not so. Another thing, it's got that kind of typical banjo twang, which I like. It's fun. That's why I got a banjo. But on the lower strings, it's a little bit less pronounced. Which I find interesting. So I'm gonna go ahead and plug it in and see what it sounds like in my amp. So here we go. Here's the volume knob for the banjo right over here. It's kind of hiding. There we go. so I'm going to play a little bit, and I'm actually going to move the amp up here, so maybe a little bit more of the amp sound will come through rather than the acoustic sound, because like you can see, this is rather loud acoustically already. So see if we can get some of that electronic sound to come through as well. All right, here we go. You can hear that a little bit better. Now, something that I think is kind of fun is turning up my overdrive on folk instruments, because I just think it's kind of a fun sound. If I can do it without hurting everybody's ears. Alright, let's see. No. I'm a little too close to my amp. I think it's gonna... Yeah, we won't be able to get much overdrive, unfortunately. There's a little bit of crunch. Yeah. So that is the sound. Turn that off before we get a really nasty noise. There you go. So that is the sound of the Luna Banjo, and here it is again in all of its glory, with its gorgeous head and its super pretty logo and its gorgeous fret markers. Having played it both acoustically and electrically, I'll say again, as I've said so many times, I'm not very familiar with banjos as a whole, but I'm gonna say, if this was a guitar and I plugged it in and it had a kind of equivalent tone to this, I'd be really happy. I think it's a good tone, and I think it sounds really nice. So I'm really happy that it sounds as good as it looks, because it's real pretty. And I'm really excited to learn to play some more stuff and maybe share it with you guys in the future. So thank you for watching.